The Galactic Defense Fleet was a place where heroes were made. Across hundreds of star systems, strong alien soldiers joined together to protect the galaxy from dangers. Some had bodies like living stone, others had wings and claws, and some could crush metal with their bare hands. Among these powerful beings, one species was considered almost useless: humans. Mira, a young woman from Earth, walked quietly in the massive docking bay of the fleet station. Around her, tall alien soldiers prepared for missions. Their armor shone. Their weapons hummed with energy, and their voices echoed with pride. Mira carried only a small pack, her steps soft compared to the heavy thuds of armored boots. She wore the same uniform as the others, but she knew they did not see her as an equal. Another human recruit, one alien whispered to his friend, his eyes glowing with pale light. "They are too weak," the other replied. "She will only slow us down." Mira heard the words, though she pretended not to care. She had expected this. Humans had joined the fleet only recently, and most aliens thought of them as fragile creatures from a simple planet. Many believed humans had nothing special to offer. What no one knew was that Mira carried a secret far greater than anyone could imagine. Back on Earth, before she left, Mira had discovered something hidden deep in the wildlands. It was an egg. And no, egg belonging to a creature that most humans feared even to speak of. Legends called it the Shadow Fang, the deadliest predator on the planet. Hunters who once tried to kill it never returned. Scientists wrote about it only in whispers, saying it was too dangerous to study closely. But Mira had not killed it. She had raised it. Now, hidden inside the large supply ship assigned to her, the Shadow Fang had grown. It was sleek and dark, its body built for speed and silent movement. Its eyes glowed with a pale silver shine, and its fangs could tear through steel. Yet to Mira, it was not just a predator. It was her companion, her protector, and her proof that humans could achieve what no other species dared: taming death itself. Mira's assignment was simple and humiliating. While alien soldiers went to the front lines, she was ordered to remain with the supply teams, managing cargo and basic systems. The commanders said it was safer for her. In truth, they just did not trust a human in real combat. On her first day, Mira stood in the command hall as orders were given. The fleet commander, a tall alien with skin like stone, read the list of units. Mira's name came last. "You, human," the commander said in a cold voice. "You will assist with logistics. You will not take part in battle. Stay out of the way and maybe you will survive." Mira nodded silently, though her heart burned. She had trained for years, studying tactics and weapons. She had bonded with a creature no alien could face. Yet here she was, treated like baggage. Later, in the quiet of her ship, Mira sat beside Shadowfang. The beast lay curled in the shadows, its chest rising and falling with deep breaths. Its glowing eyes opened when Mira touched its head. "They don't believe in me," Mira whispered. "But that will change." The Shadowfang gave a low growl, as if agreeing. Mira remembered the day she first found the egg. She had been exploring the dangerous forests of Earth, places most people avoided. The egg had been cracked, fragile, abandoned. Against all warnings, she had taken it. When it hatched, the small predator had seen Mira as its protector. From that moment, they were bound together. It was not easy. Many times the young predator had tested her, its instincts pushing it to hunt. But Mira had been patient, brave, and clever. Slowly, the Shadowfang had accepted her as its pack. Now, it was no longer a small creature. It stood taller than Mira, its muscles coiled with deadly power. But with Mira, it was calm, loyal, and ready. The days passed slowly as Mira worked with the supply team. She watched alien soldiers return from battles carrying scars and trophies. She listened as they told stories of their victories. No one asked her to join. To them, she was just a weak human with no place among warriors. But Mira waited. She knew her time would come. That chance arrived sooner than she expected. One night, alarms rang through the fleet station. The sound was sharp, urgent. Mira rushed to the window and saw ships scrambling into space. A distress signal had been received. A frontier colony was under attack. Raiders known as the Corps had struck, and they were spreading fast. Mira reported to her assigned station, ready to help prepare supplies for the soldiers. But as she stood there, she overheard the commanders. "The Corps are breaking through faster than expected," one officer said. "They may reach the supply lines." "Keep the human here," another ordered. "If she tries to fight, she will only die." Mira clenched her fists. Again she was told to stay behind. Again she was treated as useless. She returned to her ship, her heart pounding. Shadowfang stood waiting, its silver eyes fixed on her. It seemed to sense her anger. "They think I can't fight," Mira said softly. "But we know the truth, don't we?" The predator growled low, its fangs glinting. Mira made her decision. She would not sit and watch while others fought. She would not let aliens decide her worth. She climbed into the pilot seat of her small ship and powered the engines. The alarms outside were loud, but Mira felt calm. The supply teams shouted at her as she launched without permission. "Human, stop! You have no orders." But Mira ignored them. The stars rushed past as her ship flew toward the colony. Shadowfang crouched beside her, its body tense and ready. "This is our chance," Mira whispered. "We'll show them what a human can do." As she neared the battle zone, the view filled with fire and chaos. Corps raiders, sharp and fast, swarmed the colony. Alien soldiers fought back, but the defenders were outnumbered. Mira's ship shook as explosions lit the sky. In that moment, Mira felt no fear. She felt only purpose. She reached for the release hatch. Shadowfang leapt to its feet, its glowing eyes burning with hunger for the hunt. The galaxy thought humans were weak. The aliens thought Mira was useless. But they had never seen a human stand side by side with the deadliest predator on Earth. That was about to change. The small ship raced through space, its engines burning bright against the darkness. Mira sat at the controls, her hands steady even though her heart pounded fast. Beside her, Shadowfang crouched low, its glowing eyes watching the stars outside. The predator was restless, sensing the danger ahead. The colony was under attack. From her ship's view screen, Mira saw fire streaking across the skies of the frontier world. Energy blasts lit up the night like storms. Corps raider ships flew in sharp formations, their black hulls cutting through the defenses. The colony buildings below were burning, and hundreds of civilians ran for safety. Mira took a deep breath. She had no orders, no backup, and no one believed she should even be there, but none of that mattered. People were in danger, and she had Shadowfang. That was enough. She spoke softly, more to herself than anyone. "We'll make them see us." The ship shook as stray blasts came close. Mira pulled hard on the controls, weaving between debris and enemy fire. Shadowfang growled, its muscles tense, its sharp claws clicking on the floor as if ready to leap even before the hatch opened. When Mira reached the edge of the colony, she set the ship down behind a burning wall. The hatch hissed open. Smoke and dust rushed inside, and the smell of battle filled the air. Shadowfang leapt out first. Its body moved like a shadow in the dark, silent and fast. Mira followed, holding her small rifle. She had trained with it, though she knew her real weapon was the beast at her side. The first Corps raiders appeared quickly. They were tall, armored, and armed with plasma blades. Their eyes glowed red under their helmets. They saw Mira and laughed, a thin, harsh sound. To them, she was only a human, small and weak. But then they saw the creature beside her. Shadowfang lowered its head, lips peeling back to show fangs that gleamed in the firelight. A deep growl rolled from its chest, echoing like thunder. "Erik." Corps stopped laughing. One raider raised his weapon and charged. In an instant, Shadowfang leapt forward. The beast moved faster than the eye could follow, its body a blur of dark muscle. The raider swung his blade, but it cut only air. Shadowfang struck from the side, knocking the alien down with crushing force. The other Corps shouted in shock as their comrade fell. Mira aimed her rifle and fired. Her shot struck another raider, dropping him before he could reach her. She kept moving, never standing still, using the skills she had practiced for years. The Shadowfang tore through the enemies like a storm, silent and merciless. Alien soldiers from the fleet saw it all from a distance. At first, they could not believe what they were seeing. A human recruit had left her assigned post, landed in the middle of the battlefield, and unleashed a predator no one had ever faced before. "Is that a beast from her world?" one soldier asked in shock. "It fights like fire itself," another whispered. Mira and Shadowfang pushed deeper into the colony, clearing a path for civilians to escape. Families ran past her, their faces filled with fear and hope. Mira shouted to them, "Go! Get to the transports!" Shadowfang stood guard, its glowing eyes keeping enemies back. But the Corps were not fools. They quickly realized that this human and her beast were more dangerous than they expected. More raiders came, surrounding Mira's position. Plasma bolts flew through the smoke, striking walls and scattering sparks. Mira ducked behind cover, her rifle hot from constant fire. Shadowfang growled, pacing, ready to leap again. Mira looked at her companion and gave a small nod. "It's time," she said. The predator shot forward like lightning, crashing into the raiders with terrifying speed. The Corps shouted, firing wildly, but none of their shots landed. Shadowfang was too fast, too silent. Mira moved with it, firing in support, using the beast's attacks to strike at the right moments. Together, they were unstoppable. The civilians made it out safely, guided by alien soldiers who now looked at Mira with new eyes. Some had once mocked her, but now they followed her lead, amazed at her courage. By the time the last Corps raider fell, the ground was scarred with smoke and fire. Mira stood breathing hard, her rifle low, her uniform burned in places. Shadowfang stood beside her, its chest rising and falling, its silver eyes glowing in the fading light. The battlefield grew quiet. The colony was safe, at least for now. Alien commanders arrived minutes later, their armor gleaming, their expressions tense. They looked at Mira with disbelief. One of them, a tall officer with wings folded against his back, stepped forward. "You disobeyed orders," he said sharply. "You left your station." Mira straightened, meeting his gaze without fear. "If I stayed behind, these people would be dead." The officer frowned, ready to argue, but then his eyes shifted to Shadowfang. The predator stood still, its gaze locked on him. The officer swallowed his words. He had seen what it could do. Another commander spoke, his voice lower. "This creature, how did you control it?" Mira glanced at Shadowfang and then back at the alien. "I don't control it. We fight together. That is what humans do. We make bonds, even with death itself." The aliens exchanged uneasy looks. Some were impressed, others afraid. None of them had expected a human to fight like this. Word spread quickly through the fleet. Soldiers whispered about the human girl who had brought a monster into battle and turned the tide. Some called it reckless, others called it impossible, but many began to respect her. Mira, however, knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The Corps had seen her now. They would not forget. They would come back stronger, and they would hunt her first. That night, Mira sat alone on her ship with Shadowfang resting beside her. She brushed her hand over its dark fur, feeling the warmth of its body. "They fear us now," she said softly. "But fear is not enough. We have to prove we belong here." Shadowfang rumbled in response, its silver eyes half closed. It trusted her completely. Mira leaned back and looked at the stars outside. She thought of her home on Earth, of the people who never believed humans could stand among the great alien warriors. She thought of the commanders who still doubted her, and she thought of the battles yet to come. Her jaw tightened. "Let them come," she whispered. "We'll show them again." And deep in the darkness of space, the Corps were already planning their revenge. The colony was safe, but the fleet was uneasy. Mira had broken orders, and yet she had saved hundreds of lives. The commanders could not deny the truth. Without her and Shadowfang, the civilians would be gone, and the Corps would have claimed another victory. Still, many of the alien officers whispered in doubt. "She is reckless," one said. "She brought a wild predator into our war," another added. But others shook their heads. "Did you not see what happened? The girl and her beast fight as one mind. Together, they are stronger than a whole squad." For the first time, Mira's name spread across the fleet. Soldiers who once ignored her now watched when she passed. Some nodded in quiet respect. Others still looked at her with fear, as though Shadowfang's glowing eyes were staring into their very souls. Mira noticed it all. She walked calmly, never boasting, never answering the whispers. She knew respect had to be earned again and again, not taken in one battle. Shadowfang stayed close by her side. The predator was silent in the halls of the great fleet station, but its presence was enough to keep others away. No alien dared come too close. They had seen how quickly those fangs could end a fight. One evening, Mira was called into the command chamber. The high commanders sat in a circle, their eyes fixed on her as she entered. Their armor shone under the bright lights, and the air felt heavy with judgment. The stone-skinned commander spoke first. "Human, your actions on the colony world disobeyed direct orders. You endangered your unit and the supply lines." Mira stood tall. "If I had stayed behind, the colony would have fallen. People would have died." The winged commander leaned forward, his sharp eyes glinting. "That is true. And yet your beast, this Shadowfang, terrifies our soldiers. Some say it should be destroyed." At those words, Shadowfang gave a low growl, its body tense. Mira placed her hand gently on its neck, calming it. She looked at the commanders with steady eyes. "You fear what you don't understand," she said firmly. "Shadowfang is not my weapon. He is my companion. We fight together, and together we win. If you destroy him, you destroy the one thing that makes me strong." Silence filled the chamber. The commanders exchanged looks. Finally, the oldest among them, a silver-scaled alien with wise eyes, spoke slowly. "We cannot deny what we saw. The Corps were defeated because of you. But do not think this means you are trusted. You will be tested again." Mira bowed her head, slightly. "Then test me." From that day forward, Mira was no longer kept with the supply teams. Instead, she was placed under close watch in real missions. At first, she was sent with small squads to scout enemy positions. The alien soldiers were nervous, glancing often at Shadowfang. But soon they began to see the truth. On the battlefield, Mira and Shadowfang moved as one. When Mira gave a signal, the predator leapt forward, striking with speed no enemy could match. When Shadowfang drew enemy fire, Mira flanked them, firing from perfect angles. Together they cut through traps and ambushes, saving squads that would have been lost. Whispers grew louder in the fleet. "She is only a recruit, yet she fights like a commander. That beast listens to her alone. How is that possible?" Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought, but the Corps were listening too. In the dark corners of space, Corps warlords studied the reports. They replayed the battles, watching the same human girl appear again and again, her dark beast tearing through their warriors. "She is dangerous," one warlord hissed. "The beast is unlike anything in the records. Kill the human and the creature will fall." Another nodded. "Yes, she must be hunted." And so the Corps changed their tactics. They began setting traps not just for the fleet, but for Mira. They laid false signals, drawing her squads into ambushes. They spread rumors, hoping to lure her into overconfidence. Mira noticed the change. She felt their eyes on her in every fight. It was no longer about the fleet. It was about her. She was no longer ignored. She was targeted. One mission proved this clearly. Mira and her squad were sent to rescue miners on a small asteroid station. At first, it seemed simple. The miners were trapped by failing systems, and the Corps were nowhere in sight. But as Mira led her squad through the narrow tunnels, Shadowfang suddenly froze. The predator's ears twitched and a low growl escaped its throat. Mira stopped at once. "It's a trap," she whispered. The alien squad leader frowned. "How do you know?" Mira placed her hand on Shadowfang's back. "Because he knows." Moments later, the Corps struck. Dozens of raiders poured out from the shadows, plasma blades glowing. The squad panicked, firing wildly. But Mira remained calm. "Form a circle," she shouted. "Keep your backs to each other." The aliens obeyed, surprised at her commanding voice. Shadowfang leapt into the fray, moving like a storm. Every time a core tried to break the line, the predator struck. Mira fired with precision, her shots always finding the weak points in enemy armor. The squad survived, not because of their leader, but because of Mira. When the fight was over, the aliens stared at her with wide eyes. "You saved us," one whispered. "She led better than our own commander," another said. Back on the fleet station, more and more soldiers began to respect her openly. Some even trained with her, asking her how she fought in such perfect rhythm with Shadowfang. Mira taught them simple lessons: how to trust, how to listen, how to see the battle as more than weapons and orders. But not everyone was pleased. Some commanders feared her growing influence. They whispered in meetings, asking if this human girl was becoming too important. They worried the fleet would follow her instead of them. Mira, however, paid little attention to politics. She cared only for the battles ahead. Late at night, she often sat with Shadowfang in the quiet hangar. She cleaned her rifle, while the predator rested beside her, its glowing eyes half closed. She spoke softly to it, words no one else could understand. "They're beginning to respect us," she said one night. "But respect can vanish quickly. We must be ready." Shadowfang rumbled low, like thunder rolling across the sky. Mira smiled, faintly. "Yes, we'll be ready." But deep in her heart, she knew the core were planning something larger. They had seen her strength, and they would not stop until they proved her weak. She also knew one truth: if the core wanted to break her, they would first try to kill Shadowfang. The thought made her fists tighten. She would never allow it. For now the fleet began to change. Where once they called her useless, now they called her valuable. Where once they laughed, now they watched with awe. Fear had turned into respect. But in the shadows of the galaxy, a new hunt had already begun. The galaxy had begun to whisper Mira's name. Among alien soldiers, she was no longer the human recruit. She was the one with the beast, the one who fought like fire, the one who turned battles when defeat seemed certain. Soldiers respected. Her commanders used her in more missions, and even civilians spoke of her bravery. But not all whispers were of respect. Some carried fear, others carried hatred. And in the dark reaches of space, the core planned their next strike. Mira knew it was coming. She could feel the tension in every mission. Each time she and Shadowfang fought, the enemies aimed for the predator first. They wanted to kill the beast, knowing it would wound Mira more than any weapon. She never said it aloud, but she knew Shadowfang was the heart of her strength. They were not just fighter and animal, they were one. One day, the fleet received a message from a distant outpost. It was a mining station built into the side of a rocky moon. The message was short and broken. "Help, under attack, core." Then silence. The commanders debated, but Mira was chosen to join the rescue team. Some believed it was because of her success in past missions. Others whispered it was a trap, and the commanders wanted to test her again. Mira herself did not care. She only cared about saving lives. The rescue fleet arrived quickly. The mining station was quiet, too quiet. No enemy ships hovered outside, no fire burned in space. At first it seemed abandoned. "This feels wrong," Mira said softly. Shadowfang growled low, its glowing eyes scanning the shadows. The commander of the mission, a broad-winged alien named Kale, frowned. "We proceed carefully. The miners may still live." The team entered the station. The halls were dark, filled with dust and silence. Mira's boots echoed softly as she walked. Shadowfang, moving silently beside her. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Then the ambush came. From hidden vents and doors, core raiders poured out, their blades glowing red. Plasma fire filled the hall. The rescue team shouted in alarm, scrambling for cover. They were waiting for us, one soldier cried. Mira felt her heart pound. It was a trap, exactly as she feared. And she knew who the target was. Not the team, not the station, but her. The Corps shouted in their harsh tongue, pointing their weapons not at the squad, but at Shadowfang. They wanted the beast. "Stay close," Mira ordered, pressing her back. To Shadowfang. The predator growled, muscles tense, ready to strike. But there were too many enemies. Too many blades flashing in the dark. The squad fired, holding the line, but the Corps pressed harder and harder. In the chaos, one raider raised a heavy cannon. The weapon glowed with deadly light, aimed directly at Shadowfang. Mira saw it, her breath catching in her chest. "No," she shouted. The blast fired. Shadowfang leapt in front of her. The beam struck its side, throwing the predator against the wall with a terrible crash. The station shook with the force. For a moment, Mira could not breathe. "Shadowfang!" she cried, rushing to him. The beast struggled, its body smoking. From the blast, it tried to rise, its silver eyes dim but fierce. The Corps laughed, thinking they had broken her. They charged forward, blades high, aiming to finish the beast, but Mira stood in their way. Her face was pale, her rifle shaking in her hands, but her eyes burned with fire. "You won't touch him," she said. She fired with perfect aim, each shot striking true. She moved with speed born of rage and fear, her body between Shadowfang and the enemy. The alien soldiers were forced back, surprised by her fury. Behind her, Shadowfang struggled to rise. The beast was wounded, its breathing heavy, but its eyes locked on Mira. And in that moment, something deeper than instinct passed between them. A bond, forged through years of trust, grew even stronger. Mira turned her head slightly. "Can you still fight?" she whispered. Shadowfang gave a low growl. It was hurt, but it would not fall. Not while Mira stood. Together, they rose again. Mira reloaded her rifle, and Shadowfang stepped forward, limping at first, then running, with renewed strength. The Corps shouted in disbelief as the beast leapt once more, tearing through their lines with a fury greater than before. The squad, inspired by Mira's stand, rallied. They shouted and fought harder, pushing the raiders back. Kyle, the winged commander, stared in awe. He had doubted her before, but now he saw the truth. The girl and the predator were not just fighters. They were a force greater than any squad, or weapon. The battle raged through the station. Mira and Shadowfang led the charge, clearing halls and breaking ambushes. Each time the beast faltered, Mira was there to protect it. Each time Mira was cornered, Shadowfang struck like lightning to save her. They fought as one, unstoppable, unbreakable. By the end, the Corps were broken. Their bodies littered the halls, their weapons abandoned. The surviving raiders fled into the shadows, their plan ruined. Silence returned to the station. The squad stood breathing hard, their armor scarred, their weapons smoking. But they were alive because of Mira and Shadowfang. Kale stepped forward slowly, his wings folding tight against his back. He looked at Mira, his voice heavy with respect. "I misjudged you. We all did. You and your beast. You fight with a bond stronger than any army. Without you, we would be dead." Mira said nothing at first. She was kneeling beside Shadowfang, brushing her hand over his dark fur, checking his wounds. The beast's silver eyes glowed faintly, tired but proud. Finally, she looked up. "This is what humans do. On our world, we survived not because we were the strongest, but because we made bonds. We tamed the wild. We stood with creatures no one else dared approach. That is our strength." The soldiers around her bowed their heads, slightly. For the first time, they understood. Humanity's power was not in raw strength, but in courage, loyalty, and the ability to turn even the deadliest predator into a partner. Later, when they returned to the fleet, the story spread quickly. Soldiers spoke of the ambush, of the cannon. That should have killed the beast, of how Mira stood alone against the raiders to protect her companion. Some said she was reckless. Others said she was a hero, but all agreed she was no longer just a recruit. She was something greater. In her private quarters, Mira sat with Shadowfang resting beside her. His wounds were healing slowly, his body wrapped in bandages. She stroked his head gently, her eyes soft. "You saved me again," she whispered. "The beast rumbled low, closing its eyes. Mira leaned back, looking out at the stars. She knew the Corps would not stop. They had seen her bond with Shadowfang, and they feared it. They would strike again, harder than before, but she was ready. She and her predator were one, and together they would face whatever came next. The final battle was coming. The Corps had launched a massive assault on the fleet's command ship. Their goal was clear: destroy the humans and Shadowfang, the duo who had become a symbol of fear and hope alike. Every ship in the fleet was on, alert, energy shields glowing and weapons primed. Alien commanders moved swiftly, issuing orders, but their voices carried an underlying tension. The human recruit Mira stood among them, calm, ready. "Are you certain about this?" Kale, the winged commander, asked. His eyes flicked to Shadowfang, who crouched quietly at Mira's side. Mira nodded. "We fought worse traps. We'll survive. But this time, we fight for everything." Shadowfang rumbled low, its silver eyes gleaming. Mira placed a hand on its neck. The bond between them was deeper than ever. They were no longer just fighter and beast. They were partners, sharing instinct, courage, and trust that transcended words. The fleet commander, the stone-skinned alien who had once doubted her, approached. "This mission is dangerous. We need a strategy, not recklessness. You lead only a small strike team. Follow orders exactly." Mira looked at him steadily. "I know what I'm doing. If we wait, the Corps will destroy the command ship. I can't wait." The commander hesitated but saw the resolve in her eyes. Slowly he nodded. "Very well. Lead your team. But remember, we count on you." Mira climbed into her ship with Shadowfang in a reinforced compartment. The Predator's body pressed close to hers, muscles coiled, ready. She checked the controls, her mind already mapping the enemy formation. The Corps flagship loomed ahead, massive, dark, and bristling with weapons. It was a fortress in space, and many believed it impossible to breach. "Stay sharp," Mira said to her team. "We hit fast, hit hard, and stay together. Nothing else matters." The strike team followed her into the void. They moved silently, like shadows against the stars. The Corps had expected them, of course. Energy fire streaked toward their ships, exploding in brilliant flashes. Mira dodged with skill honed from countless battles, Shadowfang's keen senses warning her of danger before sensors could. When they reached the flagship, Mira made the decision. We board. The small ships docked with precision. The team entered the Corps vessel, moving quickly through the corridors. At first, the enemy seemed ready. Corps raiders poured from side passages, weapons raised. But Mira and Shadowfang were faster. The Predator leapt first, moving like liquid shadow, knocking enemies aside before they could even swing. Mira fired in perfect rhythm, covering the flanks. The strike team followed, inspired by her bravery. Every hallway they cleared felt like a test, and every obstacle they overcame confirmed what they already knew. Humans were not weak. The Corps regrouped, leading the team toward the central command chamber. There, a massive raider warlord awaited, armed with a plasma spear and advanced energy shields. His body towered over the team, muscles rippling under dark armor. He had studied the reports of Mira and Shadowfang, and he was determined to destroy them. "Human," he growled, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Your beast dies first." Mira did not flinch. She glanced at Shadowfang, who growled in return. "We fight together," she said. The battle began. Shadowfang darted forward, fast and silent, striking the warlord's guards before they could react. Mira fired at the warlord's shield mechanisms, carefully aiming at weak points. The warlord swung his spear with deadly speed, but Shadowfang dodged with grace, landing crushing blows on the enemy's armored legs. Mira's team fought beside her, inspired by the coordination. The human recruit who had once been laughed at now led a charge that no one could stop. Her strategy was precise, her timing perfect. Every move complemented Shadowfang's attacks, every shot supported by the Predator's own. The warlord roared and advanced, swinging wildly. Mira ducked low, firing at a panel on the wall. Sparks flew and a heavy beam fell onto the warlord's shield, destabilizing it. Shadowfang seized the moment, leaping high, striking the enemy with full force. The warlord fell, stunned, and Mira pressed forward with her team. Victory was close, but the core flagship was still dangerous. Energy blasts streaked through the corridors, alarms blared, and the structure began to shake. Mira knew there was no time to celebrate. The mission was not over until the command core was secured. "Move to the core," she shouted. "Stay. Together." The team ran, Shadowfang at the front, clearing the path. Mira fired at security turrets, disabling them with precise shots. The core room came into view, glowing with energy. Core engineers scrambled to defend it. Mira felt her heart race. This was the final moment. Shadowfang growled, moving into position beside her. Together, they charged into the room. The engineers, panicked, unable to stop the Predator's speed and Mira's accuracy. In minutes, the room was secure. Mira placed the override device on the core, initiating the shutdown sequence. Alarms blared louder. The ship's engines began to fail. The core flagship was no longer a threat. The strike team cheered, exhausted but alive. Mira looked at Shadowfang, who limped slightly from minor injuries but remained proud and alert. She knelt, brushing her hand over the Predator's dark fur. "You were amazing," she whispered. "We did it." Outside, the fleet watched as the core flagship went dark. The enemy ships retreated, their morale broken. The command ship and the fleet were safe. Humanity had not only survived, but they had struck a decisive victory. When the team returned to the fleet, the alien commanders met them. This time, there were no doubts, no hesitation. They approached Mira with respect, awe in their voices. "You were the key to this victory," Kyle said. "Without you and your beast, we would have lost everything." The stone-skinned commander added, "Humanity is not weak. You and Shadowfang have shown that courage, loyalty, and cunning can surpass strength and size. Today you proved it." Mira simply nodded. She knew that words could never capture the bond she shared with Shadowfang. Their strength came from trust, from understanding, from facing impossible odds together. Shadowfang rumbled low, as if agreeing with the praise. The alien soldiers watched in silent wonder. None of them had seen a partnership like this. None had seen a human, fragile and underestimated, lead a team to victory over the deadliest enemies in the galaxy. In the days that followed, Mira's reputation grew. She was no longer just a recruit. She was a symbol of what humans could achieve. The stories of her and Shadowfang spread across fleets, inspiring soldiers, civilians, and even some enemies who heard the tales. But Mira did not let it change her. She remained calm, quiet, and focused. She knew battles would come again. The galaxy was full of threats, and humans had to prove themselves over and over. Yet she also knew this: humans were never alone. They could turn the deadliest creatures into allies, face the impossible, and rise above fear. That was the real strength of humanity. One evening, Mira sat with Shadowfang in the hangar, looking out at the stars. She thought of Earth, of the long history of humans surviving against all odds, of the predators they had once tamed to survive, and she thought of the battles yet to come. "We did it," she said softly. Shadowfang rumbled in response, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "But this is only the beginning." And in the distance, the galaxy stretched endlessly, filled with dangers waiting for humans. But now, thanks to Mira and her companion, everyone knew one undeniable truth. Humans were not weak. They were clever, courageous, and unstoppable when they stood together, with each other, and with the deadliest weapons the universe could offer. The core would return, new enemies would rise, but Mira and Shadowfang would face them. Side by side, as one mind, one heart, and one unstoppable force, the galaxy had finally seen the full power of humanity.